the sort of reactions that I get from other people then make me feel, okay, I just said something there that was weird. And all I've said is something that they haven't thought about because I'm a projector.
Welcome to the Human Design Projectors Society podcast. I'm your host, Zette Harbor. Join me as we explore and dive deeply into the brilliance, the beauty, and the power of what it is to be a projector. I'm Zette Harbor with the Human Design Projectors Society podcast, and I am delighted today to have Charlie Garnham here with us. Charlie, please tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, Zed. Thank you so much for having me onto the podcast. So, hi everybody, I'm Charlie and I'm from the UK in the Southwest, and in human design terms, I'm a 5-1 splenic projector.
Fantastic. We'll be excited to hear more about that. The 5-1 profile is got a lot of richness to it to explore. Splenic Authority projector, another area of deep richness. So really delighted. One of the things I like to share with someone, particularly if this is maybe the first one they're viewing, is the purpose of the Human Design Projectors Society and podcast is to create a place where projectors are recognized. That's my job here, is to recognize you and to hold up maybe some mirrors or open some doors in which you then see yourself as being recognized by me, so that you have the opportunity to increase your awareness of who you truly are and that beauty and brilliance and power of being a projector, which most of the messaging out there is that projectors are a little bit powerless, right? We don't have sacral energy. We don't have consistent and reliable sacral energy. And so it can bring in this feeling of, it's terrible to be a projector. When in fact, there is this extraordinary and fascinating quality of powerfulness that only projectors possess. And so I am so delighted to explore that terrain with you today.
Yes, it's going to be brilliant. I know it already.
Good. So before we do begin your chart, I do like to show the viewers my chart so they have a sense of where I'm coming from, the lenses through which I'm viewing this. And as you can see, I am a self-projected projector because I have nothing defined below the G center, and my G center is connected to my throat. The ajna is optional, and it could also include definition in the head center. But essentially, this openness is something that I will allow to maybe inspire me in asking more questions, particularly of any centers that you might have defined down there. And that also my motivation is innocence, the color 6. And it is with innocence that I am opening up these places for us as projectors to share this time and to share this exploration and this curiosity and discovery of the beautiful power of being a projector. So with that in mind, let's jump into your chart, Charlie. And yes, you also have quite a bit of openness, as we can see. You have an open, undefined head, undefined ajna. You have a fully open heart center, undefined solar plexus. And as always, an undefined sacral. So I'd love to start actually by just noting that your motivation is color number 3, which is desire. You and I are the opposite in terms of our motivation. If I transfer away from innocence, I transfer into desire. If you transfer from desire, you transfer into innocence. So it'll be exciting to chat about that a little bit later. So first, I'd love to hear when you discovered that you were a projector and that such a thing existed and that you did not have this consistent, reliable sacral energy, and you had this strategy of waiting for recognition and invitation. I'd love to hear how you experienced that.
It was a very incredible experience. And I think like the first couple of months or so, it was despair, but along the side of hope and joy and, oh my gosh, I'm different and it's okay. And I think if I look back on all the years of work and pushing to prove my worth and just devaluing myself everywhere, things just started to fall into place for me. And it was really difficult. It was one of the most difficult journeys that I have ever been through to decondition that sacral. but the most rewarding at the same time. I just remember just working for 6 hours straight and then just feeling awful. But then over time, it just became easier and easier to consciously just think to myself, okay, I've worked for 4 hours. What are you going to do, Charlie? What are you going to do next? Are you going to keep working? Or are you going to take a break? Are you going to go for a walk? And the mind is so strong. The mind's you feel fine, Charlie. So why don't you just keep working? You've got all of this left on your to-do list. Why don't you just keep going? Because you know that it's going to be fine when you finish. No, really not. And to overcome the strength of that mind, the strength of that conditioning that I had, and I was maybe 35 when I discovered human design. So many years of conditioning of you have to work hard, you have to work 12 hours a day, you have to do this, you have to do that. And yeah, it just eventually it all just fell away from me. And it's the most rewarding experience to decondition that sacral.
Wow. Thank you for sharing it that way. It's so rich. And I feel like so many of us projectors can relate to that so deeply. Do you feel inspired to share with us how long you've been in your experiment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I take my experiment very seriously, actually. And I can tell you that I've just finished my 4 years of experimentation and I've just entered my fifth year. And it's the most rewarding thing that's ever happened to me.
Gosh, congrats. And thanks for being a leader in this way and inspiring us all. Tell us more about the relationship of the 4 years in terms of a deconditioning cycle.
Oh, I feel like each year has brought me a different joy or a different issue to overcome. And the first year was definitely all about my authority. And even now, I'm still learning about my authority, but that first year was very special for me to be able to really lean into what it means to be intuitive, what it means to be splenic, and also just what actually feels in your body, how it presents itself, and how it changes over time as well. And I think that first year was really important for me to follow my body. And it wasn't even that I was following my intuition necessarily, I was literally following my body. So one of the really silly little practical things that I always tell people is sometimes I will say to myself during the day, the mind will say, Charlie, you should go for a walk. And obviously that word there is should. And it's should I or should I not? And what I used to do, and this is just innate now, is if I just walked downstairs and put my shoes on and put my coat on and walked outside, then I just knew that was correct for me because I dropped my mind and I stopped thinking about it. But if my body moved towards it, then it was correct. And if it didn't, then I wouldn't hate on myself. I wouldn't say, oh, Charlie, you should have done this and you should have done that. You just relax into knowing that your body will tell you when the correct time is to do something as simple as walking. And I always say to people, every single day we make micro decisions. Things like when to stand up, when to work, what to eat, what to do. And it's in those micro decisions that intuitive splenic authority, for me personally, can really start to unfold. So start small with your authority and it will just start growing.
That's fantastic. I would describe my experience very similarly to the words you used, which is I used to have these arguments in my head. Is it time to do this? Is it time to do that? Something as simple as, oh, I should take a shower. And the mind's, but you, like you said, you put your body in front of whatever it is. And if your body has energy and wants to do it, it just does it. And the mind just doesn't have anything to say about it. And so there's no force used, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're carried along by this amazing energy, which is not the consistent, reliable sacral energy. There is a field of energy within which we are all woven. And yeah, I absolutely love that description. And yeah, just walk in front and see, do your shoes want to go on your feet right now?
Yeah.
Does the door want to be opened by you right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Lovely. I think that's really valuable. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, so that's year one, really getting to become more intimate, it sounds like, with your splenic
Yeah.
authority and learning the voice of it. And what I've read is that it's about physiological changes in the body,
Hmm.
right? And I think for splenic authority projectors, it's potentially one of the more mysterious authorities that can be out there. I don't know.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, from my point of view as a self-projected projector, I've got some pretty clear guidelines for how I do it. I've got some questions I'm literally supposed to just ask myself. Does this
Yeah.
make me happy? Does it let me express my truth? Is this moving me in a direction that's correct for me? And there's this sort of, it's like an om almost that says a yes to
Mm.
it, right? It's an
Love
om.
it.
It's like this bell tone in a cavern, right? And it's the tone of the bell, but it's right after the bell, there's this quality of silence. And that's how I know when it's correct. And of course, now drawing upon the motivation, but the splenic, it's wordless. You don't get to necessarily ask yourself questions, right?
Hmm.
You just have to notice what's happening in your body,
Yeah.
which we've been conditioned out of that, all of us, for our entire lives.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and we also live in a world that isn't quite interested in you making choices that you cannot rationally explain or justify, right?
Yeah, and I think that's half of the issue with all authorities in the human design system is that when, you use your authority to make a decision, it's not logical sometimes. And you're sitting there going, it would be a great opportunity, so why not? Like, why can't I do that? But actually, it's because more and better and more beautiful opportunities are going to open up if you said no. So, yeah.
Gosh, thank you for that. I believe every splenic projector needs to hear those
Mhm.
words to
Yeah.
encourage them and to let them know if they are early in their experiment or they struggle with hearing the voice of the splenic, to
Mm.
know that's what happens if they give themselves over to this experiment. Because it's
Yeah.
really ultimately, Ross says, just follow your strategy and authority. That's all you got to do, right?
Yeah.
He did also say that for projectors and reflectors, but in our case, projectors, knowing our motivation is going to be key in discerning whether a relationship invitation that we're being invited to is correct for us. Because if it
Yeah.
supports us in being aligned with that motivation rather than pulling us into transference, that's like the signpost that, yeah, this
Mhm.
actually is a correct invitation. I am being correctly recognized. And that's a whole other layer there. All right. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. Yeah. Tell us about year 2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4. Gosh. So I think like year 2 was around deconditioning my sacral, but also understanding my definition of my root center as well. Because both of them can be construed similarly in the sense that it is energy and the root center is physical pressure. But the thing that I learned about myself was that I put a lot of pressure on myself, but I did that internally. And actually, my mind thinks that it's external. So my mind thinks, oh, this person over here wants me to get this done. This person over here says that I need to do it by this date. And actually, that's not true at all. The other people around me were not putting pressure on me. I was putting pressure on myself. So, as well as deconditioning that sacral to understand when enough is enough and that I don't need to work and go and say yes to everything, but also to release that pressure that I put on myself to get things done and to move. Both of those together really came into, I don't know, just like more of a abundance lifestyle, more joy within my life because I could just surrender to knowing that what will be and my spleen would just lead me into something amazing without that pressure that I put on myself or without that doing and going of that sacral center. So I think that was like my second year experiment and yeah. what I learned from my second year for sure.
And you have four, no, sorry, because you have double activations in some of these gates. We have four gates activated, but you've got 7 planetary activations, lots of energy
Yeah.
that can hook you. These are like little hooks that if there's going to be an issue around knowing when enough is enough, it's going to look and feel maybe like what goes on with gate 9 or 14 or 5. 5 fixed patterns, right? Natural rhythms. 14 power skills, that accumulation and retention of power, coupling grace with control. So these are attributes that are truly part of who you are. And I could imagine that would make it really easy for your mind to convince you that you are a sacral being.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with the transits going on, I do often have my sacral center defined, but of course I don't because I'm still a projector at the end of the day. So
Yes.
I will quite often look at the transits and my sacral will quite often be defined, and I just have to remind myself that, yeah, I don't have to go do. And yeah, you're right. I do have quite a lot of wisdom in that sacral center because I am able to be very easily connected. Yeah.
Yes, you can walk into a room and there are pretty good chances that somebody in there is going to have one of those harmonic gates.
Absolutely.
And it's going to light you up and you're going to feel like, yes, let's go. So that's wonderful. And you're right. It's the difference between believing that we now are that energy creature versus knowing that somehow we've had a plug in, lovely, and being able to sense when we're unplugged and let that happen. Right. Because it's so juicy to stay plugged in, even if we have to then use our willpower or adrenalized force, right?
Yeah.
Or emotional energy. That's awesome. Okay. Year 3 and 4. What about those? If you don't mind sharing this much detail about your journey.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's rare for people early in their journey, their experiment, to have some insight into really that mundane nitty gritty. And I don't mean that in a diminishing way at all. It's really, this is the moment by moment process. And so if you out there watching feel like, why is this taking so long? How come I'm still a year later, still deconditioning my sacral? This really, I think, can be helpful for them to see into your world and your experience so that they know, oh, okay, this really is something that's just going to evolve over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that I never started each year of my deconditioning journey knowing what was gonna come through. Because the thing is with human design is that you can learn it cerebrally, like intellectually, you can absorb the information like projectors are designed to do, but actually embodying it into your body, you have no idea when that's going to happen. So gate 5, for example, never ever agreed with it. I was like, I do not have gate 5 in my chart. That's not me. I do not have fixed patterns. I'm a projector. All of a sudden last year, it was like, oh yeah, I do. And I just felt it like coming into my body. So in answer to your question, my third year of the experiment was very much around that very open ego heart center that I have. Now, a lot of people will understand the certain energies of each of the centers when it comes to their body graph. But when you've got something completely open, you can say the words to me, but I really don't get it at all in my body. I really don't feel it. And even with the transit or being connected to someone that hooks me up in that way, I still don't really have a really big understanding of it. And this is where I've had to raise my conscious awareness of my self-worth, just to enable me to heal all of that trauma and issues and everything that I've had through crushing my own self-worth over the years. And I've been able to now put in steps in place to help me with my self-worth. And for a projector, the first thing that needs to happen, unfortunately, it's not a quick and easy solution. So the very first thing that a projector ever needs to do is to recognize themselves fully and deeply. And I'm really sorry, but that's going to take a long time to do. And once you've recognized yourself in that way, then other people will start to really recognize you as well. And one of the reasons why it takes so long for a projector to do this is if you think of the shape of our aura. So it is penetrating and focused onto the other person. So we are always constantly looking deep into the soul of the person that's in front of us, which is why one-to-one interactions for a projector are beautiful. But it's hard to turn that really deep, penetrating aura around onto ourselves. And sometimes I like to describe it as you are a jar of jam and you've got a label on that jam. You know who you are, but actually other people, they can read the label. But yeah, you need to know what's inside of you.
Amen. That is what this is about, is you're self-recognizing. I'm recognizing you. You're self-recognizing. I'm recognizing parts of myself in your story, and others who are watching, they're recognizing themselves in your story. I hear your wisdom and the power of your truth coming through. Now we're at year 4. Tell us about last year.
Okay, my 4th year. Okay. So I would love to tell you all about my individual circuitry that I not came into awareness because I learned what individual circuitry was back in year 1, maybe year 2. But for me, having 2 individual channels that make up my chart essentially, I really started to be what I call weird in my 4th year. And weird in a wonderful way, of course. And I've always known that I'm weird or strange, except that the weirdness that I feel is very much like I am just normal. I just say whatever and I am just normal. But the sort of reactions that I get from other people then make me feel, okay, I just said something there that was weird. And all I've said is something that they haven't thought about because I'm a projector. So I think the year 4 was very much leaning into being unique, being weird, being, as one of my human design teachers calls it, letting my freak flag fly. And I think I brought that out in some of my branding for my business and just the way that I am sometimes on social media. Like I say, and this is a little bit of a 5th line thing as well, I say what I see, and I see things that are different and unique and weird. And some people love that, and some people really don't. And that's okay, because the people who don't can move away from me, and the people who do can draw in closer to me. And we have this product in the UK called Marmite, and it's either you love it or you hate it. And that's how I always want to be with my 5-1 and my individual circuitry. That's my 4th year of the deconditioning journey is I want to be Marmite. You're going to either love me or you're really going to not.
I love that. Let me pull your chart up because I want to let our viewers also see. Yes, so your individual circuitry is here with the 1-8, right? The channel of inspiration, a design of a creative role model. For you, it's in your personality north node, which is a really important element in who you are. It's also your design north node. And then your design Saturn, so your unconscious Saturn, which it says right here, line 5, the energy to attract society. So that's fascinating. And then your other element of individual circuitry, as you mentioned, is your channel of struggle. And look at that. You've got a lot going on in there. 5 activations. Your way, what you're here to communicate in your personality Mercury is a part of this. Like, what makes it life worth struggling, or what makes, the struggle worth it? And preserving individual integrity through opposition to detrimental forces, the energy to integrate with others in times of struggle. Line 3, alliance. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that experience.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think if we go back to the channel of inspiration specifically, as you'll have noticed from there, it is unconsciously defined. And one of the really beautiful things that's happened to me in my deconditioning journey is that I've really been able to tap into my own unique truth, but I haven't necessarily kept that truth down. And obviously, I have lots of deconditioning still to do, and there might be some parts of me that I am keeping down, but I've really tried to become very comfortable with who I am, with that unconsciously defined G center, so that I can then express it. A lot of the time, I say things, I have no idea what I'm saying. And just surrendering to the fact that I know that when I open my mouth on something like this, where I have been recognized and invited to come in, I know that whatever I say will land. And that means that I don't get anxiety about speaking, about being on podcasts. I just know, I have a knowing in my body that when I open my mouth, something will land for someone somewhere. It doesn't matter who or where, it will just land. And yeah, that's really big in terms of mental health and anxiety, and like really getting out there into the world and being that messenger of the human design system. Yeah, that's one of my most deconditioned areas, I think. Yeah.
Beautiful. Here you see your personality north node. So it's your conscious north node, gate 8 holding together, the gate of contribution, the basic worth realized in contributing individual efforts to group goals. I hear that in what you're describing. Line 1, honesty. I think you've expressed that beautifully. The truthful acceptance of limitation and recognition that it can only be transcended through sharing. And so for, I think in general, a lot of people think being weird or freaky is a limitation, right?
Yeah.
And certainly if we're not recognized and invited correctly, it will be limiting, but it's that it can be transcended through sharing. And then the exaltation, knowing that creative expression must be honestly communicated and shared. I hear that so clearly in what you just described with us, what you just shared, that you are willing to honestly accept the limitation that this is just who you are, and it's
Yeah.
not for everyone, and it's not your job to decide who it's for or not for. And you don't edit yourself in anticipation that it's not for somebody, and that it can be transcended through sharing. So thanks for
Yeah.
expressing that so beautifully. And that's your conscious part of your channel of inspiration. As you were
Yeah.
describing, you've got that fully unconscious flow there, which is the line 4 for gate 8, respect, the gift of naturally recognizing the contributions of others, and particularly the acknowledgement of those who lead by example, either the drive to contribute and be an example to and for others. I hear that in what you're describing. Or there may be times where a gift for contribution that's not conditioned by limitations. So for instance, the limitation doesn't predict individual worth is what they're saying here, right?
Yeah.
And that would just emerge unconsciously from you in terms of your north node, which is really about how you're viewing the world in which you live, right? The place that you inhabit, and
Yeah.
your spot in it. And then your design Saturn in your gate 1 is a line 5, which is great because that's very resonant for you. The energy to attract society, the power and drive to stay with the creative process, or eccentricity that, though attractive, will limit the drive. So you may experience either of those. The more we follow our strategy and authority, the more likely we will experience the exaltation. And again, neither is bad, neither is good. It's merely that one may feel more energizing and
Yeah.
fulfilling, and one may feel less. And so the more we follow our design, the more fulfilling we will feel, more fulfilled we will. So yeah, that's really beautiful. And it does come from your identity, who you understand yourself to be, the direction that's correct for you. And for anyone around you as an undefined G, especially, you can offer that, and to connect to higher self, higher source, and self-love. You have the 10, which is
Yeah.
really the self-love gate, right? And it's in both your Neptunes. That's a veiled, mystical, maybe some illusion right there. That, oh, here you go. Here you are, the heretic, line 5.
Yep.
A direct and overt challenge to norms. So yeah, good on you for that. You are Marmite. The
Yeah,
norm is strawberry
absolutely.
jam, and you get to be Marmite.
Yay, wonderful. It's so amazing because I didn't really intellectually know from the human design system what you just told me. So I haven't looked at my lines and everything else around what we've just talked about, but you've just pointed it out to me. And I'm like, oh, so I knew it. This is like something that I know in my body. I just didn't realize in human design that that's what it was. So
Yes, well, there
amazing
you
learning for
go.
me.
Thank you, because this is what, at its foundation, at its core, Ra talks about. Like you mentioned earlier, human design is not the cerebral
Mhm.
learning, right?
Yeah,
It's the living. And so, what the system can do is give you language that helps you connect maybe more deeply to the
yeah,
truth of who you are, can create some clarity around the truth of who you are, but it's already the truth of who you are. And because you've been deconditioning and you've been following your strategy and authority and really living, deconditioning those undefined and open centers. So you've just told us it works. You don't
yeah,
need the intellectual knowledge for it to work. However, the intellectual knowledge can be supportive as long as we don't use it to live the not self, to have the
mm,
mind run the show.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love the way that you describe that. I definitely look at human design as a language. It gives the not self, the mind, a language. And when you give something a language, it doesn't mean that's a bad thing. Actually, it means it's a really good thing because you can catch yourself and you can challenge yourself and you can change and you can heal that not self.
Let me share your screen again, your chart. So thanks for sharing all of that about your open heart center. Some of us have a gate or two or three or even
Mhm.
four activated. And so there's going to be a specific hook that will frame our inner conversation about our self-worth when we have an undefined heart center. And for you, you do have the 44 pointing toward it, right? So
Yeah.
potentially when somebody or the transits brings you that 26, right, you may experience a certain amount of mainly unconscious, perhaps, energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Just,
Yeah.
I can't always figure out when it is, but it's, yeah, potentially there.
Yeah. Perhaps it's when you feel able to transmit on behalf of your tribe in order to secure a materially successful deal. That's the channel of the salesman or salesperson.
Yes.
And so it's, hey, I can transmit, because you do have the 44, the gate of alertness in Mercury, which is all about communication, how
Mm.
utterly synchronistic. And line 5, manipulation. We all give manipulation a bad rap. But if we don't literally manipulate things, like you cannot eat food unless you manipulate it. That's one of the things about the language, is it really helps us release our attachment to judgment. So line 5, manipulation, the success of any interaction based on the absence of preconditions, where the instinctive recognition of the pattern leads to the possible manipulation of others. Again, not for ill and not for good,
Mm.
purely
Yeah.
in service of the tribe. And because it's splenic, it will have some thing to do with enhancing, because this gate is about the immune function. It will have something to do with enhancing immune function, response to threats, to being
Mm.
potentially are there.
Mm. And intuition as well, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Because the splenic is all about intuition, right?
Yeah.
Intuitively being alert to how to create success, and maybe being very alert to, are there preconditions in this interaction? Are they going to be a barrier to success of that interaction? Do I need to manipulate in some way so that there's instinctive recognition? Or because you also have gate 5, we talked about, you have the capacity for fixed patterns. So the instinctive recognition of the patterns that can lead you to the possible manipulation of others. So potentially you can instinctively, intuitively sense when someone's well-being and ability to really survive and thrive can be benefited by you manipulating. And because this is part of the memory circuit, and this is all Gate 26 is about the manipulation of memory, you help people remember their stories in a way that allows them to have greater health and being, and particularly in the material realm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I definitely have a couple of instances maybe that's happened that come to mind. And one of the really unusual, and I never ever thought that I would be here on a podcast telling anybody this, but one of the really unusual things about splenic authority, or any definition of the spleen, because it doesn't have to be a splenic projector or a splenic manifester, is actually communication without the means of technology. So without actually texting someone or messaging someone in any form, but still being able to send a message about health. Usually this is where I've been experimenting with it, and them somehow receiving that message and thinking to themselves, yes, I need to rest, or yes, I maybe need to do this, maybe I need to get out of that particular interaction right now. And that has been a really unusual sort of learning with the splenic authority, is communicating with, usually for me, it's been other splenic projectors, and that communication just going, ping, yes, I need to rest, or yes, I need to, whatever it is.
I want to pull up your chart again because I have questions. I'm super curious to go a little deeper if that feels, how does your splenic feel about going a little deeper?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
And so tell me if I'm understanding this correctly, is that you are experimenting with this ability, this absolute strength and capacity you have, this talent you have to, with your intuition, communicate. And no mistake here, it's Mercury. It is your voice. It's communication in a way that increases someone's health and well-being. And so when you mention that sort of, there's this like moment of, oh, it's time to rest. Is that the message you're sending to the other person, or is that something you feel is coming to you?
So that message comes to me often anyway. So yes, there's always a message of not necessarily resting. What other energy am I going to expend now? In this particular example, it's the communication to other people to rest.
That's what I thought I heard you say. And so I wanted to be really clear, because that is an amazing way to experiment with, again, unconscious Mercury activation from the splenic intelligence that you are born to have, right?
Yeah.
So your splenic song, that's part of your song that's incredibly powerful. So that's very exciting to know that you have experienced that and are experimenting with it. And so I recognize and absolutely affirm you for that, and thank you for sharing that, because that's
would you
an
like
unusual.
Would you like an actual example, like a practical example?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just to, like, I always like to give practical examples, not only because I'm a line 5, but also it helps people to really think, oh, okay, so that happened there, and that's what Charlie said. So yeah, then it pieces the puzzle pieces together. So this has happened to me a couple of times, but I do have a splenic projector friend who is not based in my part of the world, and she was messaging me on WhatsApp. So this is completely normal messaging here. And she was telling me how she's traveling Europe and she's with a manifesting generator, and she was going to be gone for 3 or 4 weeks or so. So I wasn't really hearing much from her in terms of WhatsApp, which is perfectly fine. But one day I just literally just had this awareness that she needed a day by herself, because she was with the manifesting generator, and I know what she's like. I know that she overdoes it all the time. And I just emanated this kind of idea of, why don't you go off and have a day by yourself? Wherever you are in Europe right now, why don't you just go off and do the tourism bit, or go to a spa, or whatever it is? 2 days later, she messaged me and she said, guess what I did yesterday? I had a day by myself. I did this, I did that. I went to a spa, blah, blah, blah. And I sent her that message without actually sending it to her on WhatsApp. It just came from me. And that's not the first time that it's happened. So, yeah, that's my practical example for
That
you.
is so fantastic and so exciting. And yes, when you think about our projector aura, as we've talked, it's focused and probing. And I know that in the foundational materials, information from human design, it's supposed to go like 7.5 feet in each direction. My experience is that it is unlimited. Perhaps it's the projector aura potential. I don't know, but I know that I experienced it going across great distances. And you've just shared with us how you've had a direct experience of that. So I think that's incredibly exciting. And yeah, well done, you. And thank you for offering that inspiring example of how to lead with the truth of your identity, even if other people might think, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Yeah.
And
I'm
as
Marmite. You're either going to love me and come towards me or you're not.
right. And that is the life of the 5-1, right? Which
Yeah.
I hope we get, if we don't get into today, we will get into on our next session. One of the things, as you were describing that, somehow I felt the inspiration to open up your personality sun. And it's in gate 60, which is from the root center pointing toward the sacral. Limitation, the gate of acceptance. The acceptance of limitation is the first step in transcendence. Line 5, leadership. Very long exaltation. I don't like to do that to listeners, read the whole darn thing, but destruction of old limitations simply creates new ones. So an awareness of that. Behavioral patterns that demonstrate understanding through actions and enhance leadership potential. So even though as you destroy old limitations and you're aware that simply it creates new ones, it still results in new patterns that demonstrate through the actions and enhance leadership potential, your leadership potential. And the energy, you have the energy to handle a lifelong process of dealing with limitations. That's the exaltation keynotes there. I'm wondering if that brings up anything for you that you feel inspired to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think having gate 60 in my personality sun and also the individual circuitry, the two channels as well, I feel like my life is just in cycles. And those cycles are, okay, there's a limitation. There's something there that's stopping me. But then the cycle will continue and I will come out the other side being able to transcend that limitation. And sometimes the limitations are really small. I don't know, I'm tired today, for example. That's a limitation. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger. And through that cycle, you can, or I can, sometimes go through melancholy. So, depending on how big the limitation is, I can potentially have a couple of days of melancholy, of feeling dull, of not having many emotions, or just not having much excitement in my life. And yeah, that cycle just always comes up again. If the melancholy is on the down bit of the cycle, it will always come up again. And this has actually been a really big lifesaver for me personally, because I now know what to do if I'm in that cycle. Because before, I would just berate myself and tell myself off, and it would just be terrible. That monkey mind that just putting out pressure on myself all the time. Now, I'm just like, okay, if that melancholy hits, what am I going to do? I'm going to rest. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to go and play. I'm going to do whatever it is I need to do. And actually, in the last year or so, I haven't really had that deep melancholic feeling as much. Does that help at all
Oh,
with
yeah,
what you
that's
were
wonderful.
saying?
And thank you for presencing the quality that comes with all individual circuitry, which is the pulse of melancholy. Comes in a pulse and then it's gone, and it's always under its own schedule, like under its in its
Yes,
own time. We have no choice.
always.
And when we resist the melancholy and create lots of narrative stories about what's wrong with us or what we did wrong, or frankly, what they all did wrong, okay? We can look outside and go, you're the reason I feel like crap today. When in fact, we free ourselves from that limitation, then the melancholy can move through on its own and it doesn't get clogged up inside. And somehow it led me to open up your personality Jupiter. So your conscious Jupiter, which is also individual circuitry, right? It's part of the individual circuit. Gate 61, inner truth, the gate of mystery, the awareness of universal underlying principles. I think the reason maybe I was called to open this is because you're describing a really universal underlying principle about what it is to be an individual and to have these individual activations and channels. And it's a sixth line, which is six lines have a very objective, very wise kind of view on things. And it says it's called appeal. And so you may be able to experience inspiration that can bring clarity to the collective, which is exactly what I feel that you just did for us. So thank you for that. And, or it could feel like the delusion that inspiration can bring clarity to the collective. So sometimes if we feel like we are forcing the sharing with the collective, or individual circuitry is about empowerment. We do empowerment of ourselves, but hoping that the collective and the tribe will go, ooh, we like that. Let's get some of that. So we do want that. The purpose of the individual activations and channels and circuitry is really about empowerment and allowing that pulse to move through us. Yeah, I love what you said. I feel like the way you delivered that is actually a real clear example of this Jupiter. And Jupiter is our law. It's the inner law we're here to live by. So for you, it is a law that you share this information, share these awarenesses of these universal underlying principles in order to make life better. Absolutely. Inspiration that can bring clarity to the collective. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Great. So back to your personality sun, that gate 60 limitation, right? Acceptance of limitation as the first step in transcendence. And that this is the light you are here to bring into the world in your leadership, the energy to handle a lifelong process of dealing with limitations. I'd love to hear if there's anything more you want to share about that.
I think I was given a visualization or an analogy of some kind a couple of years ago about this gate. And the visual was that the gate 60 is like a river. So you've got the river flowing through, but you've got the river bed or the river banks containing the river. So the river's limited essentially because it has to stay within the boundaries. But actually, rivers can break their banks, they can overflow. And the way that I feel that sort of comes into my life is that I do have that flow and I do have that ability to almost feel in flow because of limitations, but also at the same time being able to transcend, to break those banks and to change, move directions, etc. And this may well be what I'm going to really learn in my 5th year of my experiment. Who knows? I'm not sure. I really feel as though this might be, something that will really come into my awareness a little bit more of how that gate 60 is in my life.
Beautiful, because it is the light you are here to shine. And the way you're going to bring that into form, the way that you ground and balance that gift that you are here to give is through your personality earth, which is gate 56, the wanderer, the gate of stimulation, stability through movement, the perpetuation of continuity through the linking of short-term activity. Don't you love Ra and his way of putting words together? It's like, I know what every one of those words mean. What the heck does that sentence say? Stability through movement, right? The river in its banks. Like I really hear that. Perpetuation of continuity through the linking of short-term activity. So what else does a river do? But, as the current flows, as each molecule of water moves, it is linked in perpetuation of continuity. And again, your 5th line called attracting attention, stimulation at its most innovative and unusual, or the power of stimulation to provoke and disturb. I'd love to hear anything you want to share with us about that.
Yeah, I know this gate mainly as the gate of the storyteller, really. That's how I visualize it. And it's also how I've really been able to come to that awareness that I was talking about earlier with my G center connected to the throat, because the mind always wanted to say to me, oh, nobody needs to hear that story. Nobody's interested in that story. You don't need to share that. Actually, I do, because I have gate 56 in my conscious. So yeah, the storytelling part of it is just something that I really embrace. In terms of Ra's wording here, I do feel, again, just like my 60, I feel like I probably embodied it, but I probably maybe potentially that will drop into my awareness a little bit more in the next coming years, for sure.
Absolutely. Yes. And often Ra chose words that would trigger the not self's attention. It'll be really lovely to see what you discover about these two elements, such powerful elements of who you are here to be. Okay. Whew. Charlie, there is so much more we could dive into today, and we could spend all day. Like we could
I
literally spend the
know.
weekend just exploring your chart deeper and deeper. And I want to thank you for opening yourself up and really allowing us to see inside your own journey and your design, your true nature, the things that you have come heart to heart with in yourself that allow you to really deliver your gifts to the world more fully. And thank you for sharing that, because as people are watching, the things they see in themselves will feel more supported, and they'll recognize those aspects of themselves more fully and embrace them as you are
Yeah.
doing in order to really be a voice in the world that they're designed to be. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for recognizing me and having me on. I think it's a really important, just last little tip for any projector out there is just got to have patience, and you can't have everything now. It just takes time. So just surrender to what it is, what will be, and have patience with your deconditioning journey, because it will happen and it will be amazing.
Thank you. Yes, so beautifully spoken. Charlie, tell our viewers, where can they find you?
So I have my own website as a human design expert. So you can find me at www.charliegarnham.com, and I'm also on Instagram at the Charlie Garnham. And yeah, you can come and message me. I have my own podcast as well. And yeah, I just love talking about human design like all the time. So if you ever have any questions, or if you want to learn anything about human design, then yeah, come and join my world, and we'll be on this journey together.
That's wonderful. And I will put the links in the video description as well. And one of the things that's really lovely about your YouTube podcast is that you're giving these really nourishing, bite-sized insights into human design. Do you want to tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research, just how you do when you're in business. And I found out at the beginning of this year that I had so many people in my audience who just really love the concept of human design, but they found it really difficult to find the time to actually learn it, or even just learn about their own chart. So I decided to start my podcast. It was an intuitive decision because I didn't use my mind to do it. I wasn't like, oh no, but I can't do this because I can't do that, and all that sort of stuff that goes on when you want to start a podcast. And yeah, I just came up with simple human design, and I wanted to do just bite-sized, yeah, really bite-sized episodes just on one particular part of human design. Do an episode every week, and you can come and learn a little bit about human design as and when.
Yes, because you're right. It's if you try to digest all of human design in even one sitting or one weekend, it's too big a meal. So
Yeah.
having these beautiful little tapas can be a great way to begin. And you are designed to be a leader. We've seen it in a number of the elements we opened today. The fifth line is here to be a leader. You are here to speak things that other people don't want to or would feel afraid to. So thank you for being willing to shine that light and really lead that in this way for all of us. And yeah, I look forward to our next session. Thanks
Yeah.
again.
Thank you so much, Let. We'll see you soon.